I'm Shannon Hale. I am a writer of over 30 books for young people and teens and adults. Some of the books I've written are Princess Academy, Princess in Black, Goose Girl, Book of a Thousand Days, Austenland, which was made into a movie starring Kerry Russell, Real Friends, Best Friends. Anyway, I do a lot of different, I do for young readers, I do graphic novels. I've done a Wonder Woman book with DC and Scroll Girl books with Marvel. I've written for teens and adults and everyone in between. So it is great to be here. Thank you. I live in Utah. A little bit about me. I'm married and my husband and I, Dean, we co-write. About half my books I've done have been co-written with him. And we are still happily married after 20 years. It's a miracle. We have 4 children, ages 10, almost 10 through 16. We have 2 cats. Misty Knight is one, and the other one is my cat. Michael, last name Hat. And we are a little cat crazy around here, but I also like dogs. I don't discriminate against adorable fuzzy creatures. So the new book. All right, I'm looking at a list of questions that have been asked me. The new book is called Kind of a Big Deal, and it is about Josie Pye. So when she was in high school, she was kind of a big deal. She did musical theater and she was like a star, and everybody was like, you should go to Broadway. So she drops out of high school and tries to make it on Broadway and fails miserably and racks up debt. And the book starts a few months after she's left New York City and is just living randomly in Montana as a nanny, trying to just hide from her failed past and never go home again because she's too embarrassed. And then she enters a new bookstore one day and buys a book, and when she reads the book, she literally goes into it. And this is the beginning of 12 different books that she actually goes into when she reads these books, and she goes into all different genres of books. The first one is a historical romance. She goes into a zombie apocalypse. She goes into a YA rom-com. At one point, she even goes into a comic book, and that section, the 10 pages of comic book, are illustrated by the wonderful Samantha Richardson. And she uses these escapes as to sort of hide from her failed past and the uncertain future, but also to kind of figure out her life and her relationships and what she should do next. So it's very crazy and different. It's a comedy, and I just hope it finds a home with readers who are ready for that kind of strange, wild musical comedy, romance, fantasy, adventure, whatever weird genre it is. Let's see, my biggest influences. I mean, with a book like this, because there's so many genres in it, it's sort of influenced by everything I've read. I don't just read one genre. I think fantasy is where I started out writing because fantasy was my favorite genre when I was younger, but I also loved, mystery and sci-fi, and I love comic books and superhero stories, and I even have loved some of the horror books I read, though I hate them too because I can't sleep afterwards. I'm such a wimp. I just can't turn off my imagination. I want to love horror, but I have a hard time. Even nonfiction. Let's see, biggest influences. Oh, that's what we're doing. All kinds of influences. I don't think I could name just one. Let's see, what drives me when I write new stories? Well, so we have, when you hear writers talk about, some are pantsers and some are plotters. So plotters are people who write from an outline and they work out the outline before they even start, and then they write according to the outline. And pantsers are people who fly by the seat of their pants and they just sort of start and they go see where they go. I think that really how that shakes up is that plotters are people who start with an idea. A plot idea, and pantsers are people who start with a character. And so plotters start with an idea and they have to figure out what character would work best with this idea, and pantsers start with a character and they have to figure out what story would happen to this character. And it doesn't matter where you start, where you end, your plot and your characters are interchangeable. I mean, they're so enmeshed that you can't pull one from the other. So you shouldn't be able to tell by reading a book whether the person started with an idea or a character. You have to end up in the same place. And for me, I don't have just one way of doing it. I've done it both ways many times. I will say that when I start with a character and I had to figure out the plot, there's a lot more revision than when I solve the story problems in outline form. But that's also often less interesting. So when I fly by the seat of my pants, it takes me longer to write, which is what happened with this book. This book, I worked on for 7 years, and it had many different variations until I finally found what I thought worked and when I was happy with it. Let's see. Okay, rapid fire questions. The one book I'd like to read again for the first time is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Especially if I didn't know what happened and it was just like fresh. I'd never seen the movies or anything. If I had to pick one body of water, it would be, it's hard to beat the ocean. I mean, but I also love lakes and rivers. Give me a nice pond. I'm happy. True or false? Oxford comma all the way. Of course. Is there a debate about this? That's ridiculous. I will always reach for, what kind of M&Ms? Oh, I love peanut M&Ms. But I like regular M&Ms if they're slightly melted. Like if you pour them into some freshly made popcorn, you've got the salty and sweet and the heat from the popcorn melts them. It's delicious. Favorite podcast of late? Oh, I love listening to, it's called Script Notes. It's a podcast about screenwriting and things that are interesting to screenwriters. The books currently on my nightstand are, currently there, I have several. Midnight Sun, Persuasion, You Should See Me in a Crown, and Wish You Were Here, I think. All right, I read several books at once. The books that's already read. I'll take, what kind of takeout every day of the week? Oh, I love Indian so much. Ooh, a samosa and some sag paneer and butter chicken, naan. I do my best reading at what time of day? I have 4 kids, so it's hard to find quiet, really, just to sit and read. Sometimes we have family readathons. In that case, I love a morning or afternoon. But usually I'm reading at night after they've gone to bed, which doesn't always happen until midnight. So it greatly affects how much I read. Well, that's the end of my list. It's been such a pleasure to see you. Thank you.